Are you struggling for consistency in your sim racing? Does your iRating look like a roller coaster? If so, we have good news for you. The way to get more consistent is to first understand what you're doing differently than the professionals. And VRS is the answer. With our competitive subscription, you will have the telemetry, setups, tutorials, and everything else you need to fully analyze your driving. Our data packs and the ability to compare your driving with the best in the world will show you exactly where to adjust your inputs, change your driving line, and shave seconds off of your lap times. And our powerful and precise Direct Force Pro wheelbase and precision pedals are being used by some of the world's best drivers. All these champions agree that VRS hardware is not just the best on the market, it's also priced well below the competition. So if you're looking to upgrade to direct drive and the best pedals in sim racing, VRS is your answer. If you want to get better, get faster, and make it happen sooner rather than later, you owe it to yourself to find out why so many people are switching to VRS. You'll be so glad that you did. Visit www.virtualracingschool.com and learn why the best use VRS.
And it's that time of the weekend again, the doubleheader here on Apex Racing TV. What a super Sunday for Weekend Warriors, kicking off things with the Formula Fords at Brands Hatch. Later on, we'll be heading across to Spa for the Ford Spec races, but for now, I'm joined by Lewis around the virtual production trailer. Myself, Tim Cox, with Andy Thompson. Andy, quintessential British track. Maybe arguably a quintessential national track with a national spec car. I mean, it's just a match made in heaven, this, isn't it, really?
Good evening, Tim. Good evening, viewers. And I couldn't put it better myself if I tried, Tim. Yeah, a classic British track to entertain you tonight with these Formula Fords. I mean, it's going to be a super event. I mean, I remember 2 weeks ago in Summit Point, the cars were sliding all over the tracks and very hard to follow, and it's going to be much of the same here tonight. Certainly around the back end of the Brands Hatch GP layout circuit, going through Hawthorne Bends all the way through to Stirling Bend. It's going to be an entertaining part of the track that I'm expecting to see lots of actions with cars maybe spinning off, and then obviously getting your foot down with the straightaways after Stirling Bend, coming around clearways through the start finish again before starting another lap. So it's going to be entertaining. There's going to be lots of passing opportunities for the drivers, and it's going to be a great spectacle.
With that in mind, let's take a little look at the championship standings. So we're coming into the close now, and drop scores starting to take effect. So those drivers who've completed 9 rounds or more, that's the crucial ones. Overstreet been on the podium for all 9 races this season. Can she do it again to make that magical 10 here at Brands Hatch? It remains to be seen. Qualified just ongoing in the background right now. She currently lies third. Jason Green, been there or thereabouts, but it's starting to close up that gap a little bit now, but it's still 90-odd points adrift. Lasky, we've only had him for 7 rounds. That's what the number in the middle column denotes. He lies third on 540, and he is well ahead of Jeff Jacobson. He lies in fourth. Then we've got Jesus Rodriguez, Yata Bino, previous race winner. He lies sixth. Simon Mayer, Josh Soto, Giancarlo Schooler, and Dominic Hamlander ran out your top 10 there. Into Spec 2 now, and Tom Lorry leading the way on 509 points. 54 even points clear of Philip Fernandez, and those two interestingly with 8 and 7 rounds under their belt. No drop scores coming into play yet. Michael Nelson lies in third, then it's Joshua Flores fourth, and those two well adrift in their respective positions either in front or behind them in terms of points. Chris Montgomery, he's in 5th, and this is where it gets interesting because he's on 192. On 185 is Trenton Kramer, Benjamin Harris 180, Sander for Bruges 173. That's a fearsome battle to watch out for the remainder of the season, with Josh Justice and Richard Coffey rounding out your top 10 in Spec 2. Across now into Masters, and this has been a little bit of a topsy-turvy one. That's why you started to see the points so competitive and so close, especially for that top spot, with Race, Brewster and Marnie making up your top 3, and only a 59-point spread across those 3. Adegasius in 4th. He's starting to get cut a little bit adrift now, but he's got Stevie Ray for company nipping at his heels. Andrew Love still within the shout. Of course, he's picked up a previous win in Masters. Then we've got Warbolt, Murakami, Rek, Nelson, Toms, Bradshaw and Trespadini to round out the Masters category. Let's have a little hop across into qualifying now, though, and a shout to Pino. Back out on track after not seeing him for a couple of weeks, and well, back to... winning ways is the phrase. However, don't want to say that because we're only in qualifying. We haven't even turned into turn 1 on lap 1 of the race, but it's strong, it's commanding, and it's 2 tenths clear of anyone else that they've got available to them.
Yeah, it definitely is. Whenever he's on the track to Bino, he's certainly up the front end of the field. So it's going to be interesting to see if he can maintain it. It's a commanding lead, like you said, 0.2 of a second over Green in second, with Megan Overstreet third. One of the notable things on the left-hand side for the screen is the reds are the S1s, and again, a notable absence of quite a few of the drivers. So only 4 drivers on the grid for the S1 specs. So Megan Overstreet will be pretty happy with that, considering Green is chasing her down there in the championship. So opportunity if Megan does have a mishap that she won't be losing too many points with only 4 in that S1. But in the S2, it's well shown on track with McConnell currently leading the way, with Harris in just behind him into about 0.2 of a second there. Over in the Masters, we've got Antonio Reis in 4th place overall, 0.4 off the leader, ahead of Degassis in 5th place and 2nd in the Masters, where Manny has just put it into 3rd. So he goes on top of the pile for the Masters.
As well, as soon as you say that, it flips on its head as Overstreet goes 2nd to join Sabino on the front row. Marnie down to 4th. Ever so close. Wow, look at how close Overstreet is. Half a tenth within reach of beating Sabino, the Brazilian, to that podium, front row number pole sitter position. Got there in the end with my words eventually. So there's Michael McConnell. As we mentioned, the highest qualifier in Spec 2 was 8, just been displaced by G2 for him. To see Andrew Love currently 4th in Masters 11th right now. But I mean, oddly, it's getting quicker and quicker out there, and we don't tend to see this normally.
No, 100%. It normally peters off towards the end. Everyone's pushing to the extremes, but Brands Hatch is one of them tracks that are really good to, once the rubber gets laid down, you can go faster and faster. It's a lot more forgiving, I would say, on the off track. So as you're pushing it harder and harder, the times will increase towards the end of a session, and that's exactly what we're seeing here today as we watch Paul Stevens here just coming over the line. Is he going to improve from 14th on the grid? And no, he's not. Stays 14th position at the moment. But yeah, it's a bit topsy-turvy at the moment. There's people flying new times in from this late stage. Only 2 minutes left of the qualifying, so it's still not over in the qualifying.
No, it really isn't, is it? Justine Bradshaw right now, one of the drivers not to set a time. The one being John Toms, the Canadian. He was only come out last week, from memory serves me right. I'm interested to see how those two come on. And Stevie Ray, well down by his own standards. Oh, languishing pretty much down in 20th. Be interested to see what he can pluck out with 1.5 minutes left on the clock here.
Sliding it around Paddock Hill Bend there.
Just casually drifting out.
As they do in these Formula Fords. Great drift cars.
But yeah, it's amazing just how much sort of slip they've got, isn't it, really? But it's controllable at the same time.
I mean, this is a part of the circuit that I think is going to be super fun today for these cars. You know, the quite tight corners. I remember driving it in a GT3 and sliding out. Never mind these Formula 4 1600s as we ride it on board as Tim Stadino here. Coming around the back end, it's going to be very hard to do an overtaking move, possibly down into this corner. But if you do make the lunge, it's going to have to be really secure. And there's one of the cars that I would expect to be seeing off during the race. That corner there that just come through Sterling Bend is a very tricky corner out on track and catch you out. But I can pretty much see from coming down off Hawthorne Hill through Hawthorne Bend down the back end of the circuit, it's going to be single file, and somebody's going to have to be mighty brave to make a passing opportunity down that back end of this circuit.
There's Philip Fernandez turning down, said back straight. Well, technically the back straight, although it didn't always necessarily feel like it through toughest dip. As we're getting into the closing seconds, he's got a chance to finish his lap off though. Saw previously from the weather, it's around about 36 degrees track temperature in Celsius. We're about 85 Fahrenheit, or freedom units, as many of my American friends like to call them, while they're putting a bit of jest and ribbing into myself being a Brit. But be interesting to see what Fernandez can do. Don't think he's necessarily going any quicker right now, but still within a shout. And anything is possible. Jason Green, interestingly, he's on a bit of a flyer. Purple, that means fastest of anyone in Sector 1. Overstreet improving as well. So here comes Green, currently third. Can he improve? So he takes the checkered flag. And while he does, and he goes second.
0.02 of a second difference between Green and Overstreet there. I don't think you get it any closer.
But Overstreet's still on a flying lap, Andy, and she has gone green in sectors 1, 2, and 3. So is this going to be? Although she's actually on that lap, so actually scrap that. That must have been for a previous run. So apologies about that. I was getting all excited. Never mind. As Richard Coffey, whereabouts is he? So yes, he's got a chance of improving his lap, as that's a stricken Overstreet there. Really easy part of the track to lose it on there, I find, because it's such a blind entry, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. You're going up the hill, you almost take half of the corner on the right hand side as well, and if you get it slightly wrong or the wheels slightly turned, then you can actually spin off at the top, that we just saw Megan do completely there. So yeah, it's going to be tricky in these cars because they naturally want to slide out to the outside of the track. So it's going to be all about car control, but it's certainly going to be an interesting race. And it's going to be a hard first lap, I think. I think this is probably going to be one of the hardest first laps with the undulation of the track and obviously the close proximity of the drivers. It's going to be an interesting opening lap for sure.
I completely and utterly agree. And cold tyres as well. You know, these cars aren't necessarily the easiest to warm up either. So yeah, it's going to be interesting, as just got a few seconds remaining before we click across into the race session. And there we go. As if by magic. And in the background appears the Porsche 911 safety car. We take you through your grid for this evening. Out Tabino on pole. Jason Green joining him on the front row. That last gasp effort by 0.02 of a second, beating Overstreet to moking her to the second row of the grid, which she shares with Jorg Marni, who's your top qualifier in Masters. There is another Masters and Spec 1 row in Antonio Race and Lasky. Under Gassis, he's joined by fellow Masters driver Jim Brewster. Then it's an all Spec 2 row in Michael McConnell and Benjamin Harris to round out your top 10. It's Tom Laurie, championship leader in Spec 2, alongside Andrew Love, previous race winner in Masters category. They make up row 6. Row 7, Philip Fernandez, alongside fellow Spec 2 driver Paul Stevens. Richard Coffey, he's got Gary Walbot for company on row 8. Row 9 is another all Spec 2 row. It's Tim Steno and Sandeva Bruges. It's top 20. Well, that's rounded out by a Spec 2 driver, newcomer Daryl Drew. It's great to see how the break can get on. Again, series organizer Stevie Ray to run out the top 20. Then Alan Bradshaw, well off the pace. Watch for him coming through the field. And John Toms did not set a time, so not sure if he'll be fully joining us or not. As we're waiting for everyone to just take to the grid. And actually, I think we've got a full formation lap for a J, so don't need to rush through things tonight too much, he says. There's They probably end up racing around there, so waiting a couple of drivers to take to the grid. So, mention to a couple of our sponsors for this evening. First up, we've got PDA, or Precision Driving Analytics, to call them by their full fat name. Now, their owner, Ray Phillips, has over 30 years of experience in motorsport, has raced both open wheelers and clipped in tops a little bit as well for almost 20 years of that time. He's found a new passion in helping others go faster and perfect their craft. He filled the role of a data and race engineer and also as a driver coach while helping them teams and the drivers get the most out of data and video systems. Now, Ray was a data engineer and a driver coach for a 2019 championship winning Ferrari Challenge team, assisting, everything from the drivers to the team principals and on that scene. Now, PDA also sells a wide range of data and video equipment that can help everyone from a high-performance education driver to a professional race driver or even a race team with multiple cars and drivers. No matter what you choose, customers get the information they need to go faster and have a good time on track. Now, PDA not only helps out in the real world, but also sim racers too. Well, to help them stay within their limits while going faster. Now, give them a shout and see what they're all about, because heading across to PrecisionDrivingAnalytics.com. And then second of all, we have got Arrive Drive Motorsport. Now, welcome to your ultimate racing experience. Arrive Drive Motorsport is a full-service road racing prep shop, specializing in Formula and sports races, and now offering full Arrive and Drive sessions in F1600, F2000, F1000, and S5000, or even your own car. Are you ready to take your driver development to the next level? Well, with everything from F1600 to V8 open wheel monsters, Arrive Drive will maximize your potential and accelerate your development with up to 100 races per year in 6 different race cars. Are you ready? I'll head across to ArriveDriveMotorsports.com to find out more about them. As well, just about halfway through the lap, and now heading through Pilgrim's Drop up to Hawthorne Bend. And this is a tricky corner, isn't it? Because you could make a move here, but you've got to be really, really committed, and it requires a little bit of cooperation as well.
100%. It's got to be completely cooperative through that corner, because, you know, in any other car, you normally naturally slide to the outside, but these are going to be even more so. So if you're going side by side, a car is going to have to yield going into that Hawthorne Bend. So it's going to be an interesting part of the circuit, this back end that we're watching the drivers come around now before they start this race that we got ahead of us. But it's going to be interesting, that's for sure.
Through to the back of the circuit now on the Grand Prix part of the circuit. Really enthralling part, this. It's high speed, off-camber corners. As we head through Clark Curve, Porsche 9 safety car is in. Yatabino controls the pace. Let's get ready to go racing at Brands Hatch in the UK as we are green and we are racing. And already Overstreet getting the jump on green, left out to hung out to dry on that outside line. And here comes Antonio Race. Just rubs salt into the wound, steams through into third. Green down 2. Lasky making moves on Marnie, who's also dropped to that outside line on the grid, not working it out. Tom Lorry making a bit of improvement in the midfield there, up 2 places. Sander of Bruges off to a flyer. He's at 4 already, up into 14th place. So Stevie Ray from 20th on the grid. But it's poor Paul Stevens and his home race, he's dropped all the way. Well, pretty much to the back end of the field. Was a bit of a lock-up there. I think that might have been Richard Coffey.
Yeah, it certainly looked like the outside line for Paddock Hill Bend was the wrong line to be on. We just saw their green losing a lot of places, lost out to Megan Overstreet, Antonio Reese there. Down to 4th is Jason Green, but it is a long way to go. It is the first lap, like we were saying, and the tyres will have to be warmed before we can get into proper racing. But there certainly is some big losers and some big winners on this opening lap, namely Sander Verbruge up 5 places, starting 13th place from where he started, so he's had an absolute flyer on this first lap.
Yeah, Ray up as well, 5. So I can just see Verbruge and Fernandez swapping places in the timing time. There you go, onto the grass, nearly losing the rear. Goes Philip Fernandez. But he's on the inside line. That's Stevie Ray just on the outside there, trying to hang it around, trying to drift his way round to get the move done. Almost onto the grass and has to hold on tight. But in doing so, he's going to yield the place. And that's going to allow Andrew Love to sneak his way past. He's going to pick up one. He might even pick up two here, going for the round the outside move. Or even looking for a bit of the switchback to get the momentum to drag him up the hill. Into Druids they go. Love on the inside there. Fernandez on the outside. He runs it in too deep. And that corner, well, it belongs to Andrew Love, but Fernandez fights back hard as we're on board with Stevie Ray at the moment. They almost bang wheels in front of him. Ray inflicted with a bit of a roadblock in front of him, but Fernandez on that inside line just slow off the corner, and that's allowed Ray, who's just nearly loses it there. And, well, Love does. He's off.
Yeah, Love lost it completely on the exit there of Xerxes, and literally you can just see him in the background. I don't think he hit the wall. I think he managed to save it going into the wall, but has lost a mountain of position. You see him down there in 21st. But certainly the lines that are going around here, it's just so unforgiving. You try and make an overtake move and you lose 2 places in the process. So maintaining the speed in this car is imperative around this track to do really well. We've already seen quite a few drivers come short of making passing maneuvers and lose position. As we watch in the background, just coming off, I think that was Bradshaw coming off. Oh, what is a bit?
Wow, that is now Bradshaw.
Definitely is. Completely lost it coming out of Sterling's Bend and just spun around. I wasn't sure if there was any other cars involved in that incident, but spun right across the track, so hopefully no other drivers were involved.
It's definitely split everyone up though a little bit, hasn't it? You can see that from the timing tower gap starting to emerge at this stage of the race. Last time around, Antonio raced fastest lap of the race onto lap 3 now. Well, it's just going to tumble and tumble and tumble. 40 minutes of racing, but it feels like we've had about 40 minutes of action already. Already completed. Not even 4 minutes, not even a tenth of that so far. As there is Tim Stano trying to inflict a bit of pressure onto Philip Fernandez, who's really struggled, been offline and forced out wide, lost place after place. He's down 4 into 17th right now. Having started in what we've been 15th, sorry. No, apologies. No, it would have been 14th. Maybe 13th even. I'll get there in the end. I'll get there in the end. It's somewhere around the midfield anyway. That's the easiest way to say it.
Yeah, I think Jason... Sorry, mate. Go on.
Well, I was going to say, Jason Green, electric in qualifying, front row, snatched it away from Overstreet. But it's just not worked out under racing conditions, has it? You know, he's down to 5th, and feels like maybe he's just struggling a little bit to keep up, with Yogmani and Co in front of him.
Yeah, it certainly does. I mean, it's all about getting them tyres warmed up, isn't it? I mean, he doesn't look like he's under pressure that much from in front or behind. He's trying to chase Yogmani, but you can see Yogmani's 1.7 seconds off the front runners as well, so there's a bit of a gap there between 3rd and 4th. So these front 3 have managed to slightly break away to have that 2-car battle behind between Mane and Green. But you got the main protagonist at the front. Sabino started at the front of this field and has maintained there. Megan Overstreet started in 3rd up to 2nd, and Antonio Reese up 2 places, started in 5th place, is now in 3rd as we ride on board, coming down the very long straight here, coming down at Pilgrim's Drop into Hawthorne's Bend, and we get a good onboard view here of Antonio Reese and how much this car slides around this corner. Very well controlled there, and you can see Megan in front. The usual tactics of sliding that car whenever the opportunity sort of arrives. But you can see there's only real one line coming around this side of the second to maintain that speed, and that's what I was saying with that corner, literally taking the majority of the corner off track before coming down into Sterling's Bend. So these 3 at the moment starting to stretch their advantage over Yogmani, who has Green and Lasky for a bit of entertainment. So 2 pods of 3 battles in the top 6 there.
Right now, Ray's starting to pile on the pressure onto Overstreet. That's further down through the field. There's Lasky trying to hunt down Jason Green, but a second behind. But these guys are definitely falling out of favour with our top 3 right now, as So Sander for Bruges into the pits already. There's surely got to be a bit of damage infliction. Do you want to possibly would have been the driver's course up in the Bradshaw incident? I think off the top of my head.
It certainly was in that realms of where we saw Bradshaw slide across through Sterling's Bend as we currently watch Alain Degas currently in third place in the Masters, getting chased by Jim Brewster, who's trying to make his way up the Master leaderboard. So not in a bad position at the moment in P4. Top of the S2s is McConnell. Got a bit of a gap between himself and Coffrey in 10th place at the moment, Richard Coffrey. So these two are the battles for the S2 spec there. But looking back at the front of the race, we got, I mean, you could throw a blanket over these three, and it's normally the same race after race, these three. Obviously, Antonio Ruiz was in the S1 spec before he got the legitimate age to join the Masters Series, and still keeping his S1 days alive at the front of the field and chasing down Megan Overstreet for that P2 position. But it's the usual suspects, Tim, at the front of this grid.
It is. It's a bit of a shame that, you know, Marnie and Greenwood just lost the slipstream from these guys, because if they hadn't have done, I get the feeling they would have still been in with a shout. But as we've seen so far this season, you know, pit strategy has played a large part of the story, with people over-fueling, people under-fueling. We saw it here earlier in the season, where, was it even last season, the SRF Weekend Warriors visited Brands Hatch. We were on the Indy course there, not the full Fire Grand Prix version, and I remember Marco Panero massively under-fueling his car and losing a lot of places because of it, where we went an additional lap compared to what the clock was, you know, predicting. And that is one of the issues, isn't it, with these timed races? It's a bit of a finite science to getting the fuel just right, of not massively over-fueling and not under-fueling the car.
Yeah, it's 100%. And it's going to be interesting as well with the different driving styles. We see Antonio Ruiz, when we were on board, super smooth, not really sliding the car out. And then we've got Megan Overstreet, who just currently looking back from Joao Tabino's car here, likes to slide the car out. And I think that might be a downfall. Certainly in this track, you can see there, this car literally sliding around each of the corners, and that might put a little bit more wear on come the end of this race, because like you were saying at the start, a lot of off-camber corners here, which puts a lot of strain on the tyres. So it's going to be interesting to see what the tyres are like at the end of the race between these three drivers. But at the moment, Joao is stretching his legs and trying to just bridge a gap between himself and Megan Overstreet, so Megan has Antonio to worry about, so he can sort of scamper off. But Megan will do all the best to maintain that gap. But at the moment, just a little bit of a hint of a gap appearing.
I say at the moment, just a little bit, isn't it? Just a little bit. And just Tabino, the fastest lap of the race last time around. There's Brewster, and that is Alain Degas just in front of him. Now this is an intriguing battle, because this is your fight for the last place on the podium in Masters between these two. Brewster, well, he's well in the shout of potentially winning the championship in Masters, so he will be desperate to try and climb as many points as he possibly can. So I do believe that's Adam Bradshaw just headed into pit road early on, but he's been in a fair few incidents himself. 10.5 minutes complete out of the 40. Where is that first quarter of a race gone? It's absolutely flown by. Just like talking about flying, there's Stevie Ray up another place. Started 20th, now up into 10th.
Double figures, positions gained, a cracking start to the race here. Only 10 minutes in, so you know we've still got a mountain of time left to go. So he isn't going to be able to climb anymore. There's a bit of a gap between himself and McConnell, and Richard Coffrey is not going to let him get away as quickly as that. So we'll have to look behind to try and maintain that double position. But at the moment, Stevie Ray not having the best of qualifying, but certainly making amends for it in the race at the moment. Up 10 places to P10th. As we watch him go dart into the pit lane. 10 minutes in, 11 minutes in. This is normally a Stevie Ray strategy, isn't it? Coming in slightly early.
Loves the early stop to Stevie Ray. Will it work out for him today? he managed to keep or even improve on those 10 positions gained. I mean, while Brewster still in the fight against Agassiz, just in front of him. I can tell you as well, those top three are going faster and faster. Every time I look across, Andy, I keep seeing a purple sector pop in from one of those three. They're all pushing each other along right now. And thing is, have they got just the tires underneath them to keep pushing like this and egging each other on before one of them starts making a mistake? Talking about being close and fierce and racing. Lasky now up onto the back of Marnie and Green. Green almost feeling a little bit like, the cork in the bottle at this stage of the race.
Yeah, definitely is, and Marnie's putting him under a lot of pressure with Lasky joining the battle as well. At least they'll have a little bit of a battle because it seems that the front three have managed to scamper away from this group of cars that we're currently watching. The gap is currently 3.3 seconds, and with you, I'm saying getting purple sectors with the front three, that gap is just extending over Jason Green. Like you said, had a really good qualifying session, but unfortunately has not transition that into race pace, with the top three managing to get away from him. At the moment, he is top of this group in 4th place, with Jorg Marnie in 5th and Kane Lasky there in 6th place. So at least he's got a little bit of entertainment to keep him going in this 40-minute race, because I think it's going to be a tall order to try and catch up with the front three, who just seem to be matching each other. You can just see the gap there, 0.4, 0.2 of a second. It's just super close at the front three, and I'm pretty sure that this battle that we're watching between Green, Marnie and Lasky will be just as entertaining shortly. But look how close these guys are.
They are, and that following group really, really needs to pray for this lot to start fighting with one another, although looking at how things stand at the moment, just covering on with one another. And for me, Race and Overstreet are in the prime position here. Tabino has led since lap 1. And he's been the one punching the hole in the air for Overstreet and Race. What fuel saving have they managed to do in comparison to the Brazilian? Is this going to spell, disaster in terms of Tabino's aspirations of snatching victory here today at Brands Hatch? Or have they not managed to save anything? I mean, there are plenty of opportunities around here to lift and coast. As you see in Race, again, you spoke about it earlier, Andy, that much cleaner line that he has against Tabino, and certainly against Overstreet, although from speaking to her in the past, she loves to just throw this car around and slide it about to a great effect. Hence why she's been in the podium in every single round so far this season.
It looks like she's on the ragged edge, doesn't she? Going around following here from Antonio. It looks like she's just about to lose it and then just grips and goes. It's quite amazing to actually watch how she's managing to do that so well, using the drift of this car that naturally is one of the characteristics of the Formula Ford, and use it to her full advantage. But at the moment, she's obviously well underway here, only 1/10 of a second back. 0.3 of a second covering the top 3 cars. I mean, it's just insane. And it's race after race that we see this battle between these 3 main protagonists. You've got Megan Overstreet, who loves sliding, as you see a car going off there slightly track. And then you've got Antonio, who seems to be the master of the pit stop strategies and a lot cleaner through the lines. So is this one of the tracks that's really going to pay off for him during the race, with his more cleaner lines, not scrubbing the tyres? And obviously the fact that he's in 3rd place at the moment, like you said, probably doing a little bit of coasting, as we see Megan Overstreet just closing that gap to Tabino here, coming around to start another lap here, just looking down the inside, just letting Zhao know that she is still there, and Antonio doing exactly the same to Megan. So these 3 at the moment, it's a cat and mouse game.
That certainly is. That it certainly is right now, Andy. Who's going to get it? Who's got this one in their bag? Or even equally of any of them. And still, we can't discredit the following 3 behind. I mean, they're on the cusp of being out of contention fully at 3 seconds. However, as I said earlier, it just starts, the second half of the race, after the round of pit stops, when this lot truly start battling, and It's not an organised affair. I think that's their only chance. But equally, Green, Lani and Lasky can't afford to attack one another because otherwise it will just negate any time gain they will have against this top three. As that's a wall bolt past Fernandez there for 12, just happened off camera. In fact, actually, Steno got through too, so I think something, maybe a bit of a spin there for Philip Fernandez potentially. I had the best of races here today. Here's Fernandez, he's back to where he started, as here we go. And this is going to tell us exactly how it all unfolded for the American. Well, it's down into 30s, lose the rear. Oh no, just ran too much pace in. Well, how though? Bonus points for holding it.
Well, I suppose, I mean, if you look at the majority of the lap we were watching before I really interrupt you, is that he seems to be spending more time off track than actually on track going around the corners. I think we just saw him there again as well, going up slightly off track. But it's, yeah, I think this is the Adam Bradshaw incident where we saw him spinning around Stellan's Bend, possibly. Let's have a look. Oh, going extremely wide there through Westfield Bend. And losing it, easy place to do it. So not, again, like you said, another driver not having the best of day here today at Brands Hatch. But I was just noticing there while you were talking, Tim, this second pod with Green, Marnie and Lasky are actually going quicker than the top three now. Now they've sort of got the tyres warmed up, got into their little bit of groove. They're actually starting to close that gap. It was 3.3, you can see it now 2.9. So this race could not be over already.
It's well spotted. Well spotted.
Thank you. I do have more uses sometimes.
Yeah. Once in a while you come in handy, don't
Once
you?
in a while. Exactly.
You know. That's what we pay you the big bucks for.
That's Reese is an issue.
It's just, I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? I mean, I do wonder. There was one back marker that headed past. I think that must have been Adam. No, it wasn't Adam Bradshaw. It must have been. What was it? Anyway, they were heading past one back marker. He's right in amongst them there. You can see right now. I do wonder if that's maybe a little bit of a telling part of the story as to why they've been able to gain that bit of time. Because look, now they've cleared them. It's back to normal service and that gap extending once again.
What happened to Antonio Reeves? Because he was on the back of Megan Overstreet and now he's 3 seconds behind. So something's happened to Antonio to lose literally 3 seconds.
Well, this is what's confusing me. I'm thinking like that's
something's happened.
Yes, he's got to have had a half spin or something. That's what's confusing. I thought they got a back marker in amongst them, but they haven't, have they?
No. We'll leave it down to Lewis, our master on the cameras, to find out how he has lost the time. It wasn't his last lap because I'm just looking at the timing tab, and they're all in the 1:33. So I think it was probably lap 12 that the issue with Antonio, why he's sort of being brought back now and into the clutches of the Green Marnie Lasky fight. But that leaves the two out in front, Tabino and Overstreet, to fight it out. And you can see there, Overstreet just slightly half a second now. So Tabino is really trying to turn the screw here to try and break that slipstream to Megan Overstreet. And obviously Antonio's certain demise has just given the free rein between these two drivers now to really fight between themselves.
Oh, Tim Steno's had a big incident there. He's recovered from. Doing so, he's lost a couple of places for good measure. Actually, in fact, I made that free. Wallbot Fernandez, and now Paul Stevens having passed.
Definitely is. A lot of drivers now are struggling a little bit out on the track. Certainly that back end, like we say, in Westfield Bend, and then you got Dingledale Corner is the two places that the lower half of the field seem to be having a little bit of a
Andy,
struggle with.
I've worked it out for you as to why they might be struggling. So since qualifying, track temperatures have jumped up by 4 degrees Celsius. That's around about what, 7 or 8 Fahrenheit? And I think maybe that's why the drivers are struggling at this stage of the race. Some of them have maybe got slightly more unstable setups or something like that. It's Yeah, I think that's what's causing this issue. I mean, having said that, Yadbino's just set the fastest lap of the race, so I mean, go figure. It's all or nothing for these drivers out here right now.
Yeah, it's certainly the ragged edge, isn't it? You know, you can either do a hero or a zero in this track. It's you know, it just invites you to push the car that little bit too much, and if you manage to save it, then that's where you get the really fast times. But it can really bite hard, this track, like you were saying, the undulating corners you got, the different elevation changes you've got as well, and obviously adding to the fact that you just said there that the temperature's increased. They've done 15 laps, they're on their 15th lap now, so they've done 14 laps on these tyres as well, so there will be a slight bit of tyre wear creeping into the equation as well.
I think it's more to do with the tyre temperatures, I would guess, personally. Being a poor sim racer, those drivers are able to just manage them a bit better. And but then equally, having said that, Overstreet's been, as you spotted very, very early on, been sliding the car around left, right, and centre, but yet doesn't seem to be having the issue. Or maybe are we going to see a different story in the second half of the race? I just don't know anymore, Andy. I just don't know.
Just her driving style, so she's used to doing that, and she understands the car when it does that. Maybe some of the other drivers, like we see Antonio Reis, maybe that's what caught him out. He's a very methodical driver, doesn't like to slide the car, he likes it to be planted. So if the car's now starting to slide around slightly on the track, Megan is very adept to controlling the car because that's her driving style, where Antonio Reis and maybe a lot of other drivers like Antonio are not used to the car sliding, so are getting caught out with the car sliding that little bit too much from what they're used to, so really impacting their speed. But at the moment, Megan Overstreet cannot find a way past João Tabino. João has certain parts of the track that he just gets that little bit of a buffer, and then by the end of the lap, Megan's right back on the rear, well, I would say rear wing, I'd say by the rear tyres of these Formula 4s.
I thought you were going to go for a rear bumper there while you were stopping yourself, being more of a GT driver. But either this doesn't have either bumper nor wing, but gearbox. There we go. That's a nice universal term, isn't it? I'm trying to think.
There you go.
Oh, exception of the TCRs that are front wheel drive, so the gearbox won't be in the rear. You can't win them all, can you? You can't win them all. They're just destined to curse us commentators. Anyhow, on board with Michael McConnell right now. Your leader in Spec 2, doing so comfortably, in fact. Richard Coffey 15 seconds behind him. That is Jim Brewster in front of, well, 2 cars in front of him because he has got past Alan Degassis. Crucial, that's with Jim onto the podium in Masters again this season. And just having a little look at my stats, I think that's going to be the 4th time we've seen Jim on the podium. If he can, you know, don't put the curse commentator onto him. If he can close this one out, yes, I think it is. Yeah, the 4th time, the 5th time it will be if he can hold on to this one. We have 3 seconds and 1/3 so far this season.
Does, but he has the gas right on his rear tailpipes, as it's not going to have it all his own way. But nice to see Michael there rocking the Lilo and Stitch attire in his picture. You know, obviously a fellow Disney fan, so there we go. As he's there travelling around in 9th on the back end of the Brewster Degas battle. But we currently join the chasing group, which has completely dropped away from the front 2. Look at the gap now, 3.2. What's that? Was up to 4 seconds. This all of a sudden just dropped down to 3 seconds there with Antonio just trying to chase him.
This is the reason why, because these two have switched around, haven't they? Ooh. Overstreet ahead of Sabine for the first time in this race on lap 17. It's taken a 25 minutes, nearly 26 in fact, to do so. But the change around happening. And maybe Sabino, after leading all that time, is just happy to allow Overstreet to go out in front of him. Warbot into the pits. We're well into pit territory right now, so expect these drivers, see these drivers as, wow, dicing with death, dancing with a devil goes Overstreet. Coming out of Sheen there, holds on and lives to fight another day.
We say it's losing control. She's probably well within her control rooms or what. It just looks spectacular if you're the chasing car. That she's lost it, and then all of a sudden she just rockets away from the corner. It's just her driving style. It's just so unusual and one I'm not used to watching. But Zhao coming looking for a lunge there down into Paddock Hill Bend, not getting it right and losing a bit of time in the process. So really just trying to push it at certain parts of the track. You can just hear the tyres on Megan Overstreet's car just squealing out to say, let me go. But well within control here, and certainly trying to pull away now. 0.7 of a second is the gap between Overstreet and Tabino. And you can sort of see the gap there back to Jason Green increased to 5.3. So the front two, there's just no holding them back.
Yes and no, Andy, of that gap increasing because Antonio Race has headed into the pits. So it's made that gap seem bigger, but that's because Race has dropped off from being third as he's headed to pit road along with Richard Coffey's in, Stevens as well. So is Fernandez too. So all change at the moment as we're heading deep into pit territory right now. Wow, I think this is where you get to see. We haven't seen the undercut really work this season. Saw it a couple of times last season, and this season just haven't been able to pull it off, or no one's been able to get the ducks in the road to make it work. Is tonight going to be different? Are we going to see it work this evening? Or is it going to be the status quo of going early? It's not the time to go. Here comes Sabino into the pits as Ravens, well, very, very wide and gets away with it thanks to these little concrete patches that are in the centre of the grass there at Grand Hill Bend. It's up the hill now.
Probably still trying to hold on to that 10th place gain with Richard Coffey just chasing him down for putting back into single figures. But what a great race he's had at the moment. And back up to the front.
Andy Smith's happened to Antonio Race because he's out. Saw him come to the pits, but he's gone. And he's disconnected.
Tabino he's been in for his pit as well. So can the undercut here help out Tabino? He does have a bit of a gap between himself, so has free running, and there's no advantage to Megan Overstreet for any slipstream. So can we see an undercut? Because where we sort of talking about the undercuts, we've never really seen the cars close enough together to see if the undercut's going to work. But it's normally the overcut that works in these cars. But it's going to be interesting to see now with Overstreet and Tabino which pit strategy works. But look at that. I mean, she's just sliding right around the corner. It's just amazing to watch, isn't it?
Oh, it's absolutely fascinating, and well, I'm not too sure what's happened to Antonio Race for him to disconnect like that. It's not showing due to packet loss or anything like that. He came into the pits completely normal, so that's gonna, well, for stats fans, as Overstreet heads into the pits, that prevents a podium finish streak that goes all the way back to Phillip Island. That's where it kicked things off, where he managed 5 wins on the bounce between there and Summit Point. Last time out into Galagos, just only second. But tonight he will not be on the podium, so it's going to look a little bit different. But Marnie on course for 2 wins in a row. Green in, so's Marnie, Lasky, McConnell, Brewster, as there goes Tabino. Overstreet on pit exit. Has she done enough? As here comes Tabino, I think it's going to be, but Jason Green's the one to watch. Has he got the jump on the Brazilian? Not quite, Andy, not quite, but he's definitely closer.
100%. I mean, that is amazing how Jason Green has managed to claw back all that time. I mean, we were talking about Green earlier on being 5 seconds behind this, and now he's well within the mix of these two guys battling it out. So where it was a 2-horse race, it's now turned into a 3-horse. It's whether Green can keep a hold of the back. You can see him there, 0.9 of a second, so barely on that slipstream. So really needs to make sure he closes that gap down as much as he can to be able to come into the fray of this win here. But great pit stop strategy there from Jason Green to close down to that tap, because he was very much fighting with Lasky and Mane, and you can sort of see now they're literally about a second to 2 seconds behind.
Now here's the worrying part though. Overstreet stopped for 17.6 seconds. Tabino 16.4 seconds, so 1.2 seconds less than Overstreet. Green, 13.3, so 3 seconds less than Tabino, 4 less than Overstreet. That's
Two are battling it tooth or nail, and already they've managed to eke out a 1.7 gap to Green behind in third place. And I think Green, he just had to throw the dice, didn't he? He was sort of in no man's land, heading off that group, so he had nothing really to lose there, and that just looked like Megan Overstreet was going to lose it again, but manages to keep the guard going. But it's going to be an interesting run-in now to the checkered flag, not only for the racing on track, but have cars under-fueled.
I think Green has, but deliberately. He's normally really good on his fuel, so could be wrong on this one. However, the rate at which he's dropped off the back of Tabino and Overstreet, and also been caught by Lasky and Marnie. I mean, surely, his tactic's got to be here, just try and back up Lasky into Marnie so that Marnie fights with Lasky to keep him at bay that way. Well, look, it's going to work as Lasky having to go defensive on the inside line there, but Green runs it in deep, and in doing so allows not only Lasky but Marnie through there. Well, he's thrown that one away, hasn't he?
He 100% has. I think he knows that he's probably under-fueled the car, so he can't lead the race, and we'll soon see if he drops off the back of these two cars. But it's completely the wrong strategy. He risked it, but unfortunately I don't think it has paid off there for Jason Green. He had nothing to lose. He was at the fourth place in that Spec 1, so he's still going to be in fourth place by the end of this race, so probably just trying his luck and see what he could do in the race. But Jorg Marnie at the moment currently having a good battle here with Lasky, trying to get that last fourth position over, in fact the last podium position out over Overstreet and Tabino in front, with Lasky and Marnie currently watching on screen.
He's having to Philip Fernandez. He's had been an incident out on track while we stick with this falling battle for the last place on the podium overall. Marnie versus Lasky. Equally, just you can see him just in the distance there. They're still as close as ever. Tabino and Overstreet. It's just getting a bit sketchy, a bit loose, a bit leery there is KJ Lasky. But holding it together, but for how much longer against Marnie? He's a wily old fox. He's been around the block a few times. He knows what to do in these situations. So he looks up the inside there, just trying to probe, ask questions of Lasky on lap 23. And has Lasky got it within him to withhold this pressure that's in just building and developing? And you said, could Green stick with them, Andy? Look at that, he's 3 seconds behind these two. Already, what, one lap? One lap, he's dropped all that time.
Yeah, you can sort of see him in the background there. He's completely fuel saving now to get to the end of the race. So completely misjudged the fuel. But these two are having a great battle. Jorg Marnie is putting Lasky under a load of pressure. You can just hear the tone of the car, like really lethargic. The rest of them are screaming. His are very much mid-range. So very much eking that one back to being. But back to the front of this enthralling race, Megan Overstreet still managing to maintain that lead over Tabino, but Tabino is right on her tailpipes here into the closing stages of the race, and it's going to come down to a mistake, I feel, of who's going to win this one.
Well, if you're with us last night for Formula Renault 3.5 from Interlagos, the top split broadcast coverage for that, you will know that coming onto the final lap, just because they're in this order and you might look a little bit out of contention, you could sneak a podium. I don't think it's possible. So Green, I mean, he's still tumbling tight. He's lost another 3 seconds to this lap, but well, if Tabino gets into Overstreet and this, likewise, if Marnie gets into Lasky, Green could sneak a podium here. I mean, what a fairy tale story that would be for the American if he could pull that one off. I think it's a lot more luck than judgment, though, for that to happen. As just looking at the clock, we're 1 minute 33 lap, so that's famous. So I think they've got, by my rough calculations, Andy, they've got this lap, another lap, and then it'll be the white flag, I think, from my rough calculations.
Yeah, I would say three laps including this one, so 2.5 laps I reckon they've got left. As we watch Zhao getting a run here on Megan Overstreet coming down into Hawthorne's Bend, getting the inside line, but Megan Overstreet just quicker around the outside there, but these two now are fighting tooth and nail, and what that is giving is the opportunity for Lasky and Marnie. You can see there the gap come down to 2.7. You can just see them in the background there. So if these two continue to trip over each other, it could bring them in. I think time is going to be against them, but they seem to be losing a lot of time, certainly on this lap here that we're currently watching. Is Lasky just gaining back on Tabino, but he does have Jorg Marnie right behind him for company, so it's pretty much status quo between these two pods of cars, and it's going to be interesting now. But it does seem to be that Zhao's got a decent amount of slipstream. You can see here closing, looking down here into Paddock Hill Bend. Thinks better of it going down the inside, but does look up probably the inside here into Druids. Is he going to try and dive down the inside? No, he decides to go around the outside to try and maintain.
Andy, sorry to cut across you. Marnie's ahead of Lasky. You see it in the background there, just about. He's got the move done into Druids. And Lasky just not able to hold it off. As this replay is going to tell us exactly how he did it. And he's been sizing this move up. Well, there you go. Forced Lasky into the mistake, into the gravel in the end. Quite an easy move, but Lasky didn't make it comfortable for him. Trying to hold on around the outside, but Marnie just drifting and moving his car out on the racing line. That secured that fair place for him. Meanwhile, back at the front, they're at it again, aren't they?
Yeah, it's going to go all the way to the line. Oh, this is easy. Wow, okay, that was a bit of touch and go there. I'm not sure what happened there. Probably overshot it, I think. Probably coming down into Hawthorne Bend. So Kane managing to save it, which leaves Marnie a little bit off the hook here between this battle that was ensuing. But back at the front is certainly no getting off the hook. Zhao looks down the inside. Oh, he's just putting his nose up into every single corner. Is it going to end in disaster? But at the moment, Megan Overstreet does have the legs at the moment over Zhao.
White flag in the air, 1 lap left to go, 1 step of opportunities for Tabino to snatch this away from Overstreet. She's pushing it as hard as she can, just dipping wheels into the gravel a little bit here as they head through to the final time. Big overtaking opportunity starting to run out now for Tabino. He's got to down the end of the big back straight away through Dupper's dip. Or is he going to have a go earlier on? He pulls alongside Overstreet. She runs right around the outside. That might give her just enough momentum. And equally, it's going to give her the inside line come the end of the straight as we look down from the helicopter. Tabino, he's carrying, they almost touch wheels there, down through Duffer's dip, up into Hawthorne Bend. Overstreet sends it in. But Tabino's going to fight back, and Overstreet knows it, just closes that one off, prevents the Brazilian from getting the move done, but he's carrying all the speed, all the momentum, but in the end, and to the back of Overstreet, cannot get it done there. And now he's got one big opportunity. He has the Brazilian into the final corner. Clark Curb, he needs to have the best possible exit here coming out of Sterling's down clearways for the final time this evening. But I think he's just a little bit too far back to mount a challenge that's going to be successful as Overstreet tries to save it. And here comes Tabino. It's a race to the line. Who's going to get it? Tabino's just in front of that mistake from Overstreet has cost a victory here at Brands Hatch.
You can see from the helicopter view how much Megan Overstreet was fighting with that wheel around that last corner. She's probably kicking herself there, literally lost it there. But that gave Zhao the opportunity. I mean, wow, that was a great defensive effort there from Megan Overstreet on that last lap to just maintain the position ahead of Zhao, because Zhao was putting under an immense amount of pressure. Certainly add a lot of the overspeed. I think where Zhao probably made a little bit of a mistake was, trying to go up the inside there into Surtees. He would have been much more better following Megan Overstreet, because he tried that move the lap before and it didn't pay off for him, and he tried it again and it didn't pay off for him again. So if he had managed to stay behind Megan Overstreet, because he was right behind Megan's car, that he would have had the overshoot down into the Hawthorne's Bend. But wow, cracking last lap and a cracking race overall.
Wow. Let's take a little look at exactly how it all unfolded once again. Don't think I ever saw that. It looks secure for Overstreet, but there you go. I think fair play for the commitment of Tabino to keep his foot in there and just hope and pray it was going to open up for him on the outside.
Well, I mean, you got to admire Megan's ability to save it, because it'd be good if we could, Lewis, just to look on board of Megan's car on that last corner, because I think she was absolutely fighting with that wheel. If we go on board with Megan, I mean, look, coming around literally. I mean, how did she keep that on track?
Looking at just looking over her helmet to her, sort of, you could just about see the steering wheel. She was turning left to go right there.
It was insane. I mean, what a quality quality race between the two drivers. Literally nothing in them for the whole race, and come down to that on the last corner of the last lap. It probably means a lot for the race anyway.
Well, here are some Class of 5 results for you here from round 10 at Brands Hatch in the Formula Ford Weekend Warrior. Sabino picking up his third win of the season to go with Summit Point, and Okayama over the streets in the end. Well, I was just drifting. I know there's a rallycross course here at Brands Hatch, and that takes in the same final corner, and she's driving it rallycross style, but in the end has to finish second, and well, continuing her rich vein of form, being on the podium every single race so far this season and making it 4 second places in a row for her. Yogmani, winner in Masters, making it 2 wins on the bounce for him, but also getting on third overall on the podium. Kane Lasky finishes 4th and rounds out the Spec 1 podium. Jason Green underfueling in the end cost him dearly and put paid to his race. McConnell, well, had a quiet race, but that makes it 2 wins on the bounce for him in Spec 2. And in fact, completes a 5-race streak of finishing on the podium for him. Jim Brewster, second in class in the end. A solid result for him, back onto the podium in Masters, and keeps alive his championship aspirations, with Alan Degassis rounding out the podium. Of course, those two were battling up for the podium in last place on the podium, in fact, in Masters for a lot of it. But Stevie Ray in 9th in the end. Richard Coffey running up to turn 2nd in Spec 2. Fernandez 3rd in class, 11th overall. They got Steno, Walpole, Laurie Stevens, who was 1 lap down, then into retirements for Bruges. We lost on lap 17. We completed 27 laps here today. Bradshaw, we lost him on lap 9. Drew on lap 7. I missed off Antonio Rice. Apologies to him. We lost him on lap 16. Not too sure why he came in for his pit stop and never emerged again. Otherwise, he was looking good for Masters victory here today. Drew, lost him on lap 8. Love retired on lap 4. Lap 3 for Harris, and John Toms did not take the start. Let's have a bit of a chat to some of our drivers right now. And first up, well, nearly taking victory. I mean, well, we were talking about your style, how, Megan Overstreet, how you just like to just throw the car around and drift it through the corners. In the end, was it just 1 corner too far with doing so?
It was about 3 corners too far doing that. My rear tires were completely overheated, so every time I was turning, my car was just kicking sideways there at the end. That's why Zhao was just able to attack left and right.
But we saw it, you know, on that final corner. We've our producer Lewis has brought the replays a few times to just understand how it all looked. You looked, you know, pretty certain for it, and then you spent most of that final corner steering left for a right-hander, a la rallycross style. But other than that, you know, coming up to it, first half of the race, was it just, you know, a case of sitting behind Jiao and a bit of fuel saving for yourself?
Not really. I was pretty much going flat out the entire time just to stay in his draft. Like, you could lose a little bit of time here and there. If you're really lucky, every once in a while you could let off the gas just right before the start finish line to cruise a little bit. But yeah, beyond that, I was going 100% throttle everywhere.
Well, in the end, wasn't to be, but keeps up your streak of finishing on the podium in every single race. And that makes it 5 second places in a row. Next time out, when we head to, where are we going
I think it's
next?
Belle
Belle
Isle.
Isle. Yeah, Belle Isle. I mean, how you fancy your chances around their street circuit? Really punishing if you just get it minorly wrong. Can you go one better potentially?
I'm hoping so. I'm overdue for another win.
You are definitely. I mean, God, it's all the way back at Alton Park was the last time we saw the winners there. But even so, congratulations on the second. That's Megan Overstreet there for you.
Thank
Andy,
you.
if you managed to grab for a bit of a chat.
Well, we got the top of the Masters, Jorg won it. Jorg, welcome to the box, mate. A great victory in the Masters in the end. I think it was a bit of unfortunate for one of your teammates, Antonio, but I'm not going to take it away from yourself. I mean, a cracking race for you, mate. How was it?
At the beginning was quite thrilling, and as I mentioned at the beginning, I'm not holding back as easily anymore. I proved it on the third turn. I got by him, and yeah, that's okay. But really, I'm really sad for Antonio. He had a fantastic race, and yeah, incident like that, it happens if the lap car is not really so very. What do you call that in English? Um, I forgot the name.
Compliant.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, but it's so hot here, I can't think anymore.
I mean, you were certainly having a decent battle with Kane Lasky and Jason Green at the start. I mean, were you surprised when Jason Green got so far ahead of you after the pit stops?
Yes. And I was asking him on the chat, what has he done? Did you find a wormhole or something? He said, no, he underfueled.
You can certainly see that because the rate of knots that you were catching him and he was dropping off the bed. But you and Kane had a really good battle up to around about 3 laps ago. I bet you were quite happy when he took the Hawthorne Bend slightly wrong and you managed to get a little bit of gap to give you a breathing space.
Yes, exactly. I really was hoping for that because I know I was pretty stable on this track, and each lap after lap, I'm still doing my mistakes, don't get me wrong, but I was hoping for that so I could finally finish the race as I wanted. I really pushed hard, maybe for a little chance to catch the first two. But that was, out of reach, and I almost spun again somewhere and at the end, and I thought, okay, now I'm holding back. I'm just cruising over the finish line, and that was it. But it was fun. It was really fun.
Yeah, definitely is. I mean, you seem to be struggling a little bit this season, certainly with the speed that Antonio's been driving around of. But congratulations on your win here, which will claw back some vital points in the championship for you. And it's still not over till the fat lady sings, as they say.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks a lot, guys, and thank
Cheers,
you for
Jorge.
broadcasting. Thank you.
Thanks, mate. There was your money there, top in the Masters, and over to you. And I think you got Jim Brewster, Tim.
I have indeed. We've got just enough time to squeeze him in. Jim, second in class here today.
What do you think? I worked hard today. Yeah.
Keeping those championship aspirations alive, though, mate. I know you're
Well,
down
I
playing.
got to beat Alan. I got to beat Alan. Alan and I raced all day yesterday, and I threw it away in the last corner. So today I sat on his bumper and then got by, and then somehow came out with a second and a half after the pit. So Alan makes me work really hard. He's a good guy to race with, and we race really even. I'm sure he's tired of red and green. I'm sure he's tired of my colors.
I'm sure he is. That is for sure. I mean, talk us through that opening lap in the midfield there. There was a lot going on back there. Some people gained a lot very quickly and easily. Some people lost a lot. Just talk us through the first few corners and your
It might have been
tactics.
behind me. I don't know. It was pretty calm where I was, so it might have been behind me. I think that was behind me. So I had pretty good. Oh, our new guy too, Michael. Michael did really well. He ended up getting past me, and I assume he won S2. And
Yes.
that's a really good drive for him. I think this only his, I don't know, third or fourth week or something. So that's really exciting. We got new guys coming up that are fast.
Yes, so that's his. But ironically, there's a little bit more than that. Michael McConnell. He's Alton Park was where he came along, of which since then, I mean, 5 weeks. His worst position is second, which is at Summit Point. Other than that, it's now 4 wins for him from 5. I mean, astounding.
Yeah. He chased me and Alan down, and he was moving. And then at the end, he got away. He came out in the pits in front of us, and he got away. But anyway, we got to get you guys out here. You got to come join us, man.
Well,
get some substitutes.